Welcome, everybody. I'm very excited to be here today, whether you're in person in the convention center or joining us online. I am joined by my colleagues Matthew, Seb, and Paulo. We're really excited to talk with you today about building agents for M365 Copilot with the M365 Agents Toolkit, an extension for VS Code. And yes, I did say the word code. One quick disclaimer, we are going to dive deep into the tech here. We're going to wade through a bunch of code. If that's not your jam, no offense, you have time to run to another session. But if you're with us, we're excited to have you. We've got a lot to dive into. I'm 𝗦𝗲𝗷𝗻𝗀. I lead the product team that is responsible for Copilot extensibility, building agents, connectors, the APIs that you use to integrate in with the Copilot stack. So this is a topic that is near and dear to my heart. And I hope by now a lot of you know the basics. We think of M365 Copilot as this personal productivity assistant grounded in your work context. It's integrated into the M365 apps available across all your devices. And that kind of horizontal personal productivity experience is augmented by agents that take the skills and knowledge and the data that's required to really transform and automate specific business processes. And they extend that Copilot experience so you can experience it in a consistent way across all of those devices. By now, you've probably seen this slide a few times. 1.3 billion agents IDC thinks will be running around in the world by 2028. We really look at that as a signal of the promise that this technology has to transform those business processes and the urgency that a bunch of organizations are feeling to go and take that technology and apply it to really specific business processes. Those processes exist across every industry, every function, every business, large and small. But as any of you know who have built an AI agent, it is more complicated than just taking a model and sort of sitting it in the general vicinity of some data and hoping for good things. There's a huge diversity in the scenarios that people are trying to transform. Every one of them has a different need in terms of the experiences, the data, the capabilities, the workflow, the tools that are required in order to make that scenario really sing. So you need a comprehensive stack that has all of the options you need to address each of those business use cases. And that's what we think we have in the M365 Copilot platform. This is a kind of broad, kind of bird's eye view of that platform, and I'll just kind of point out a few things along the way to orient you as we dive in. I'll start with the top row on UI constructs. We've got notions like cards, dialogues, and stage view that are the building blocks for these kind of rich agentic user experiences that can show up embedded in the conversations agents are having wherever they show up. We've got a huge variety of capabilities, knowledge and data from a wide variety of enterprise data sources, things that are native to M365, the public web, a huge number of additional sources from any system that you can connect in. We've got a bunch of capabilities built into the platform for things like code interpretation, data analytics, image generation, even connecting into other agents. And then, of course, we've got custom actions. Every one of these scenarios requires that you connect into some external system to do a real-time data lookup, to perform a transaction. We've got increasingly sophisticated ways to do that in the context of your agents through REST APIs, MCP servers, even Office web add-ins. In channels, this is about where your agent can show up. And of course, that includes M365 Copilot and Teams, but also includes the M365 apps. Really, any website, web app, or device application that you build can embed these experiences as well. As we drill into tooling and agent types, I'm going to go to the next slide to talk about that in a little bit more detail. We really fundamentally believe that every single person should be able to build an agent. So we have a spectrum of tools at their disposal. You've probably heard a bunch this week about things like Agent Builder, really simple conversational experience for building agents that's accessible to any information worker. You probably heard a lot about Copilot Studio. It gives you kind of makers and power users these building blocks to assemble more sophisticated autonomous solutions. But in this session, we're going to focus entirely on developers. And what is probably the most underknown part of this story, the M365 Agents Toolkit, which is an extension for VS Code and Visual Studio. And it gives you several different options for building agentic experiences. And for the rest of the session, we're going to focus in on those options. We'll have three segments. One where we talk about how you can build on the M365 Copilot stack and leverage all the work that we've done in that stack through declarative agents. Another where we talk about how you can build your own AI stack and connect it into M365 Copilot through custom engine agents. And the last one where we talk about how you can take the capabilities of the Copilot stack and use the Copilot APIs to integrate them into applications of any shape, agents, apps, portals. So let's start with declarative agents. A lot of people think of this as kind of the fastest way to deliver value on the platform. For me, it's much more than that. The way it works is it lets you leverage all of the work that we're doing in the M365 Copilot platform, the user experience, the orchestrator, our hosted foundation models, and you benefit as we build more sophisticated capabilities there, as we invest in quality, as we update the models there. So you get a whole bunch here for free as you're building out, and you really get to focus in on what your agent does, the instructions that guide how it works, the grounding knowledge that you want it to operate with, the tools you want to give it, both ones built in, like code interpreter and image generation, and the ones that you provide, custom REST APIs, MCP servers. And this week, we're announcing a ton of new capabilities associated with declarative agents. Just to show a few here on the slide, and to name a few, we're making it possible to connect multiple agents together, so you can have more sophisticated kind of multi-agent solutions that leverage strengths of different agents. You can now use MCP servers as actions that are tools for your agents to operate against. We've got a new CLI to do agent evaluations in your developer loop, so you can make sure your agent works great for all the use cases that you care about. And we've got an updated support for embedded knowledge. Now, 0.5 gig of knowledge can be embedded directly in the definition of an agent. There's increasingly sophisticated document understanding for things like OCR on that content as part of the agent. To make it real, I want to welcome to the stage my colleague Seb, who's going to show you how you can build declarative agents.
Thank you, Rob. So today we'll dive into the world of Zava insurance. And we're going to understand how this team really works and how they've been using our developer tooling to deliver high-impact customer service solutions for their frontline workers. We're going to cover a claims operation scenario. We're going to cover a fraud detection scenario with custom models. And we're going to also talk about agent support portals and how we can build custom solutions integrating inside Copilot. So let's dive into this first demo. So I'm here. I am a Zava insurance employee. And there has been a huge, huge storm in Seattle. And we're getting swarmed by claims, by requests, by people that are afraid. So how do we do that? Well, first, we believe that the first thing you should do when you're an agent is to go to one of the provided agents from your organization and ask the question. We should be able to do that. So let's start with this. So first, I'm going to get up to speed. I'm going to say, you know what? I want to get everything that has been reported in the last 24 hours related to storm damage. Keep a look on the right side of the right-hand side of the screen. What's going to happen here is we're connecting Copilot directly to the MCP server that runs locally on my machine. That MCP server is an LOB capability that we built, an API that we expose as an MCP server. And now I was able to surface the data that lives inside my organization directly inside Copilot. And you can see it here. Look at how awesome this is. I now have a good understanding of this is all the requests that came in the last 24 hours specific to the requests around Seattle and storm damages. So now let's go see what that code is about. Let me do that. So first, we're going to have, let me do this. Oh, that is, oh, went too quick. So this is our declarative agent. This is what a declarative agent looks when you build it using code. It's a very simple JSON file where you specify what's the name, the description, the instructions that you want to use, a set of conversation starters to get people going. But also in our case, I want to focus on the actions. This means that we're bringing capabilities that live outside the Microsoft 365 boundaries. It's something that we want to access, something that lives inside our organization. And this file that represents the actions is a very complex file, 400-something lines. that you don't need to build. The Agents Toolkit helps you connect and select the tools you need for all of the MCP servers you have around you, and will automatically generate that. What it's going to generate? It's going to generate something very simple. It's going to generate a function that has a name, a description, a set of parameters. And you can look at the parameters here. Earlier, I asked for Seattle and Storm. So automatically, Copilot was able to match my intent with the parameters of my MCP server. So in this case, it was able to send location and damage type. Then we also have some capabilities that we can embed inside the response. We can enhance the response semantics. And how do we do that? We use something that we have been using for a long time here at Microsoft, which is our adaptive cards. These cards bring a rich UX experience directly inside Copilot. So if I switch back to Copilot here, we could see the textual version of it, the chat version of it. But you can see here that I have all these citations. These citations are really cool. They're rich. And you can take action directly from here. You can bring buttons. You can submit the form. So that way you can maybe update directly from this interface. So that is basically what happened here. Now, I realize that this here, this one that I have right here, that 96 by Stephanie Williams, is something that we need to process urgently. So how do we do that? Well, let me go to another agent, an agent that's called Zava Care. All of the agents built for the Zava employee needs are all connected inside the Zava Care agent. So in this case, I have access to two different agents. One that handles my claims, so with the integration of my MCP server, but also one that also handles all of my procurement. Who are the contractors we work with? What are their rates? What is the best deal for us to go in business with these contractors? So what I can do here, I'm just going to do that. And I'm going to say, hey, for this one, please create me an inspection, an urgent one, for the next available inspector. And if you look on the right, you're going to also see, oh, wait a second. We need to create something. So I need to find who's the next available agent. Now, I just saw that I got the get inspectors called automatically. You don't have to orchestrate any of that. Copilot does all of that for you by default. And then afterwards, it's going to say, oh, OK, cool. I was able to find that. Now, do you want to confirm? I'm going to create this data here. It automatically generated a description based on the context it had. I just hit confirm. Now it's going to go and do that. And we're going to see the create claims happening in a few seconds. We just saw it right here happening on the right side of the screen. So now I was able to create that inspection. I was able to have all of that. And now it just gives me a really cool summary of all that. But it also gave me this, that I do have some contracts with Thompson Roofing. And here I can see that the information is coming from something called Zava Procurement. Let's go see what's in Zava Procurement. So Zava Procurement is using a new concept we call embedded knowledge. Embedded knowledge is a capability that allows you to bring data that lives alongside the agent. When you create the agent, the data is part of the lifecycle of the agent. So when you create it, you have access to it. When you share the agent, the people that are shared with also get access to these files. When you uninstall the agent, all those files are gone. So they really follow the full life cycle of the agent. And now you can do that using our ProCode tooling with the Agents Toolkit. Now, this agent, the agent we created, Zava Care, we created using a new technology we're introducing called TypeSpec for Microsoft 365 Copilot, which is a language that allows you to have a fully typed, safe experience to build agents. You've seen the JSON file earlier. If you're building really complex agents, you might want to have something that is a little bit more developer-friendly. And that's what we did with TypeSpec. Let's look at this. So I see that my agent has two connected agents. We have the procurement one, and we also have the Zava claims one. And that's the only thing you have to do. All the orchestration is all automatically generated by AI, which is really, really cool. So now, when I go back to my experience, everything that's going to go through Zava Care will automatically involve these two. Now let's look at that. As part of the developer toolkit we also have this agent card. This agent card says, hey, by the way, you have these two agents that are connected, And here's how I actually discuss with them, because the discussion happening between agents is done through natural language. So I can actually go here and see that the request was provide the current rates and so on, and then the response is all here. So we're connecting these agents like you would do them. So automatically, this is all happening through this. So now, I'm very confident. I'm happy. This works great. But there's going to be new things happening. I will want to make sure that I am always in control of my agent and that my agent is always performing like I expect it to perform. So as part of Ignite, we're happy to announce that we are introducing a new Copilot 𝗲𝗍𝗀𝗍𝗀𝗍 CLI for developers that will allow you to run prompts and expected responses onto Copilot Chat and automatically be able to evaluate the quality of these answers based on your own criteria. So in this case, for example, show me all active storm-related claims, and then the expected answer should be the agent should orchestrate with Zava claims to retrieve all claims filtered by blah, blah, blah. So you can write those to really make sure that the experience you're building is great. Now, let me show you what it looks like in this CLI. So I have a very simple command here. I instrumented it with an NPM script. And as I'm going to run it, it's going to automatically go on. And there we go. And now we're just going to start and connect to Copilot Chat and send all the prompts. It's going to take a little bit while, so let me show you a report that was already built. You can have access to a JSON version of this, but you also have access to a nice HTML report that we generate automatically for you. And in this case, I can see that my relevance, my coherence, and my groundedness are actually pretty good. So in that case, I'm confident. I'm happy to ship that to production. And now I have an agent that was all evaluated, respects my quality, and will be performing for a long time. All of that is available today in the Agents Toolkit. And we are really looking forward to see you building all of that with the toolkit. Back to you, Rob.
Thank you, Seb. Great demos. I'm also excited to share a couple of examples of what our customers and partners are building with Declarative Agents. Let's start with an example from our partners at Persistent. They built a really effective declarative agent that fits right into people's workflow. It's grounded on the authoritative SharePoint data that backs their work, so it gives them what they need right in the flow of work without having to go and hunt for it. But what makes this app especially powerful is how tightly it integrates with the M365 apps. Persistence brought this agent directly into Word, so while someone's writing a document, the agent can pull key context from SharePoint. No copy-paste, no switching context, just keeps them in the flow. And this is a great example of how declarative agents can bring enterprise data and Microsoft 365 together to make content creation simpler and faster. We'll get one more declarative agent example from our partners at Fujitsu. They built the AI auto presentation agent that works with M365 Copilot to create presentation videos featuring AI avatars that's grounded on data from M365. They can generate it with their own likeness and voice, and it can produce presentation automatically in over 30 languages. They just select the presentation document, the duration, the language, and the agent uses custom actions to call backend APIs that generate the presentation, this time in Spanish.
El AI de Fujitsu selecciona de manera neutral el AI adecuado entre los agentes disponibles en el mundo bajo el concepto de Agent for.
So we talked about how to build agents on the M365 Copilot stack with declarative agents. Next, we're going to talk about how you can build your own AI stack and integrate it with M365 Copilot through custom engine agents. This allows you as a developer to own the full stack, to have your choice of language model, to build your own custom orchestration logic or use an open framework, to do really deep custom tool integration and invocation. And this path is especially ideal if you've already built a custom agent on another platform and you want to integrate it in with the M365 Copilot experience or the control plane. Of course, this week we've got a bunch of new announcements around custom engine agents as well. Just like the persistent solution you saw a minute before, custom engine agents can now be integrated directly into M365 apps, so they can be in the flow of those tools as well. They can leverage a bunch of our user experience constructs for Copilot, like loop, hero cards, and suggested prompts. And interacting with custom engine agents, you now get things like Context IQ and People Picker, so you can address M365 entities directly in the conversation well with these custom engine agents. And I'd like to welcome my colleague Matthew to the stage, who's going to show what it looks like to build out a custom engine agent.
Awesome. Thanks, Rob. All right, folks. As you guys know, or those of you that know me, I am not a PowerPoint person normally. I am typically a coder, and I like to code. I do a lot of code, but I am going to throw a PowerPoint at you just this one time. OK, so what we're going to focus on here is the fraud detection aspect of the Zava agent that we've been talking about. Now, we've seen a lot of really cool capabilities inside the M365 Copilot declarative space, but sometimes you need to go beyond that. What if you need to deal with multiple models? What if you need to deal with a trained model, something that belongs to you, that has your IP in it, your data in it, and you're using it to adjust to your space? So let's talk and see a little bit of an example of what that looks like. So once again, we've got the M365 Copilot experience sitting out here. Now, this has been built with the agent framework that Microsoft provides. Now, the agent framework is an Uber brand. Unlike something that is specific to, say, the Azure space or the M365 space or the Power Platform space, this is a unifying brand across all of the Microsoft offerings concerning pro development around agents. So the specific technologies that you're going to see here are the Agent SDK, which is what's providing the connectivity in, and you're going to see the agent framework's orchestration system at play in this particular demo. So when I go through here, I've got myself a Copilot running. I'm running in Visual Studio Code there in the background. And I'm going to ask it to get me some information on this particular claim. Now, this is running in my local desktop. It's using a dev tunnel, again, but it's operating against M365 Copilot in my tenant. It's pulled some information from my business source using my credentials. Not a service credential, not some other credential, but my credentials. So it's automatically doing security trimming for me, managing all that information through the services that Microsoft provides. Now, that doesn't have to be a Microsoft service. If it's a different data source and your systems support security trimming, as long as you can translate a JWT token into something that you can security trim, it's available to you. So I've got some information here on the particular incident. That's great, very basic. Now let's actually go take a look at, show me the damage photos. OK, so once again, I'm asking it for some information back out of my data source. Show me the damage photos that were submitted along with this. In this case, once again, out of my business solutions, my business system, it's providing me some information, perhaps from my media store, where a customer has uploaded these photos, and it's given me just a base ability for me to start making a visual assessment. And then I want to analyze that photo. So once again, I'm going to copy this, and I'm going to paste this in here and ask it to analyze. Now, photo analyzation goes beyond the capabilities of what we provide in the declarative service. I have to provide a different model. In this case, I'm using Minstrel. And Minstrel, in this case, is just being used to analyze the current photo, make some assessments based on some honestly randomized business data that we built, to give an estimate, because there's no way that that damage is only worth $5,000 when the side of the car is crumpled in. It's going to give you an assessment based on that and ask you for more operation. Should I approve this claim? Should I move on from this claim? But let's actually ask about the fraud risk for this particular claim. Could this be a fraudulent request? Let's see, analyze. Show me the fraud risk. Oops. Where did my mouse go? OK. Let's see. Lost my mouse from the back, guys, and my keyboard. And don't have a keyboard or mouse. All right. When they get that working, wait, mouse is working from the back. No. This is the problem when they take your machine and they run off into a corner with it. You don't know what to do. All right, let's see. I got it back. Thank you. That fixed it. All right, so show me the fraud report. Show me the FRAUD risk. I can't spell fraud. Let's see what it figures out. And the answer is, figured it out for me. So it's going to run the fraud analysis. Now it's using both my LLM plus potentially my fraud module to go figure out what's going on. Okay, great. So we're going to let this run its course. You can see it cranking along over there. It's giving me a medium risk, at which point I could approve this, which is then going to move it into claims processing and move it on. But let's stop there. We've looked at this cool thing enough. And let's bounce over here and look at the code. So what is all in this agent? So let me crank this out and show you the source folder. That's the source folder for the agent. So here on the source folder, what you can see is an agent that is called the Zava Insurance Agent. That's where most of the guts of this thing is, and a set of services that have been brought to it. Now those services are the tools that we have made available to the AI engine, in this case, running on Agent Framework, to make decisions based on what's going on. So just like you would expect, there's a set of instructions. In this case, we put them right here in the UI so you guys can see them. Let me pull this back over so I can zoom in just a little bit. We have some instructions that provide some guidance to the model that tell it which plugins to use for what kinds of things. And as we move down, you can see that we have initialized our application, in this case, our Zava Insurance Agent, which is of type Agent Application. And our agent application has two handlers, which is someone is joining the conversation, which can handle group chat, team chat, channel chat if you're in the Teams experiences, or if you're in the M365 chat experience, it's just gonna go ahead and say, hey, welcome to the meeting the first time you join it. And it has a generalized activity handler, which means process anything that comes through my channel and send that on to my model. So if we come down here and actually look at what the model is doing. Now, this is something that is very specific to the Microsoft platform. It's not super specific to the Microsoft platform, but it is a thing that we call streaming messages. This is not to be confused with HTTP streaming or streaming, server-send events. Message streaming is a way in which we communicate parts of messages back. It's actually how we do that whole building look and feel. And we provide chain of thought information. It's all through our streaming system. So in this case, we're queuing an informational update to tell the client, the M365 client, that stuff is happening. And ideally tell you, beyond just a little typing indicator, that something's going on. Then we pull the customer's profile. And if we don't have the profile, we go get an access token for that profile, exchanging that for the graph token. Again, you didn't see that user exchange happen. That was not demo magic. That is actually how it works. It's all passive, transparent in the background. We pick up the user from M365 Copilot. We make it available to the agent. The agent can then exchange that token for the specific scopes that are necessary. All the appropriate security stuff happens. It's all happening through Entra. So IT and your security teams can manage that. We then toss out another status that says we're doing work. Then we create the agent. Now let's jump down to where we create the agent. When we create the agent the first time, what we do is we set up the services. Now, unlike when you're working in, again, the declarative system, you don't see all of this happen. This is actually happening behind the scenes. And there are certain parameters and things that are injected into it. When we're doing it in the pro code side, running at the code level, we actually have control over that. So we can inject the context of the conversation. We can inject other services into that. You can add your own configuration, your own data, and inject that in and make it available to the tool call. This is, again, how from your code, you deal with authentication to MCP, for example, or authentication to downstream using an in-context token, i.e. my token, to make the MCP call, versus having to depend on a service and therefore potentially dealing with a privilege escalation. Now, we add those tools all into a thing we call the tool list. The tool list is a pile of AI functions from the agent framework that we then make available to our chat completion client. As I can see, you can see there are several tools in here. I'm going to roll down here, I create my tool list, and I create a simple chat completion client and supply those tools. That is the heart of what this thing does. Okay? At the end of the day, most of the magic is actually happening in the various tools. Okay? So the other capability that we have here, and this is something that we announced yesterday, by show of hands real quick, A365, how much have you been beat over the head with that? A bunch of times? Okay, so the A365 system, one of the big things that it introduces is this thing called the A365 MCP tooling servers. It's a collection of tooling servers that can be made available to any agent. To add that into your tool, your pro code tool, this line right here, 288, that's it. Adding that in returns a tool list that you can then hand to your chat completion agent. That tool list is controlled either via your developer on a local machine with a tooling manifest or via the A365 tooling service based on the criteria and the rules that you have. All right, so as I said, we run through our chat completion agent and we move on. Now, one last thing I want to show you before I have to move on. Move off the stage is our vision service. Now, I told you that we were using multiple models. In this case, that Minstrel vision service is a separate, an entirely separate invocation, analyze damage photo, that's a tool call that's actually standing up its own prompt, its own model, its own chat completion options, potentially its own tool calls for subcomponents, a sub-agent concept, and invoking an analyst and then returning that as a specific structured response. From a configuration point of view, that actually ends up looking like this, where I have, in this case, I'm hosting my model out in the Azure world. I'm using I'm using Agent Framework and Foundry, and I'm hosting a GTP4o mini model, I'm hosting a Minstrel model there, and I'm hosting a text embedding model. Each one of those becomes available to this agent, which in turn I can create components, chats, and then tie all of that together. All right, so that is the, I think that's the content I wanted to do, and I'm gonna go ahead and hand this on back to Rob. Thank you.
Awesome, Matthew. Thanks so much, Matthew. Love the demos. Always good to have a couple hiccups so that you know it's real. I want to show a couple of quick examples of custom engine agents from our customers and partners, starting with ADP. They built ADP Assist. This is a custom engine agent that dramatically changes how people interact with their HR data. Instead of jumping into the ADP app, they can experience all this directly from within the M365 Copilot experience, where that's checking time off balances, setting up direct deposit, pulling up pay statements. They're all just now a quick natural language conversation and a tool that people use to get work done every day. And it combines the familiarity of ADP with the intelligence of Copilot and meets people where they're getting work done. Another example of a custom engine agent that's showing real value is this IBM and custom engine agent that helps IBM teams quickly get to precise, actionable information for their consulting engagements. And one of the most powerful use cases is building executive presentations from the internal data that backs those engagements. And what looks like a simple search on the surface is actually an agent coordinating multiple different tools behind the scenes that are all pulling together that information in parallel. And once the agent has all that context, it hands off so that teams can use Copilot and the rest of M365 to turn raw reports into polished narratives and clear talking points for their presentations. So we talked about declarative agents, we talked about custom engine agents. Now let's talk about how you can take the capabilities of the Copilot APIs and embed them in an app of any shape. The Copilot APIs make the intelligence, the context, the grounding power of Copilot available outside of Microsoft's first-party user experience, in your own apps, in your own agents, really wherever work is getting done. And we think about this as part of what you heard us talk about as Work IQ in the keynote this week. And with Work IQ for custom engine agents, you can now tap into all that intelligence from your own apps, but you can respect all of the existing permissions, sensitivity labels, compliance controls, audit, logging, monitoring, policy enforcement, all that stuff, because it stays in situ within Microsoft 365 where that's applied. You can use WorkIQ and custom engine agents from any solution built in Copilot Studio or as a pro developer through these Copilot APIs. And it's available for any user that has an M365 Copilot license or on a consumptive metering basis. We're excited this week to announce new availability milestones for all of our Copilot APIs. The Retrieval API for retrieval augmented generation scenarios now is generally available, and chat and search have both reached broad public preview. I'd like to welcome to the stage Paulo, who's going to show us how to build the last portion of the Zava insurance solution using Copilot APIs. Paulo.
Thank you, Rob. Thank you. Good morning, everyone. So, OK, welcome. And let me switch to my demo environment soon. OK, here we are. So, here we are. OK, so now we are going to see the same custom engine agent we've seen before, but now we want to see how we can leverage the power capabilities of Copilot APIs when it comes to extending our custom engine agent. Now I'm retrieving the claim information of the same claim we used before. And as you can see in this claim, we have the streaming information, and we can see that we have a bunch of information, including the claim type. Now, in Zava, we use a SharePoint Online repository for documents, where we store policy claims and rules for policies, so that we can validate and we check the compliance of claims against those policies. Here you can see we have a set of rules. And what I can do in my custom engine agent is to check the compliance of this claim against those policy rules. Now, using the Copilot Retrieval API, I can retrieve that specific document as grounding data for my custom engine agent, and I can provide that grounding data to the AI model I'm using inside the custom engine agent, so that I can check the compliance and see what the result is. And it is also interesting to notice that inside the response we get from the custom engine agent, we also have citations, and we can clearly see that the output is coming from that specific document stored in SharePoint Online. So let me show you how it works under the cover. This is the source code of the custom engine agent we have already seen before with Matthew. And as you saw, we get an on behalf of user token so that we can consume the Copilot API under the identity, on behalf of the identity of the current user. So now what we do here when we interact with the agent is simply to rely on a plugin. And in that plugin, we first of all rely on the Copilot Retrieval API. So we create a JSON payload that we send to the Copilot APIs here, you see, /Copilot/retrieval. We send this message, including the access token of the user, so that the response we get, the retrieval we do, will be on behalf of the user, and we will have all of the security trimming based on the identity of the current user consuming the custom engine agent. And by doing that, we will be able to retrieve as RAG data the content of all of the documents matching the criteria we provide, and then we can use that as the input, as the instructions for our AI model to process and check the compliance of the claim we are processing right now. And that's really, really cool, because we can use Microsoft 365 data as grounding data for our custom engine agent. But we can actually do more. So let me switch to this demo, and here we have yet another solution that we created for Zava. This is a portal that we created for employees of Zava, so that they can use all of the content to manage their customers, their policies. As you can see, we have a list of customers that we can manage. For every single customer, we can see the policies and stuff like that. But my employees in Zava can also create new quotes for customers. So they can say, let's create a quote, for example, for a home insurance. Now, let's make the assumption that I'm a newbie in Zava, and I really don't remember what are the information needed to create a new quote for a customer. Luckily, in Zava, we store all of the information about how to create a new quote for a customer in a document stored in SharePoint Online. And here we have a step-by-step guide creating insurance quote for a customer. Now, as a user in the Zava portal, I can leverage the same experience we have in Microsoft 365 Copilot, but in whatever technology you like. Here, for example, this portal is a React-based portal. You can host it wherever you want. You can create it with whatever technology you like, and can be any kind of application, even a mobile application or a desktop application of your own. Now I can simply say, tell me what are the information needed to create a new quote for a customer. And by doing that, I will trigger the actual engine of Microsoft 365 Copilot behind the scenes through the Copilot Chat API, and I'm providing the same capabilities and the same knowledge we have inside our Microsoft 365 tenant through Copilot, also from an external application, fully secured, because in order to be able to do that, I have to be authenticated and to have, again, and one more time, a token to secure the access to all of the content we get. Now, Copilot will retrieve the information and will tell me what I need to do in order to create a new quote. Again, quickly, let's have a look at the code. So when we do that, we need to rely on the Copilot Chat API. So first of all, we need to create a conversation, which means that we need to have a client which will rely on the REST APIs of the Copilot APIs. We need a bunch of permissions to being able to do so. And then, when it comes to creating a new conversation, we simply need to make a REST API call to start a new conversation. When the conversation is ready, we can simply send a message to the same conversation, providing the conversation ID, and targeting the chat endpoint of that conversation. And when we do that, we can provide a set of settings so that, for example, we can declare what is the context we want to use, so a set of additional instructions that we give to the Copilot engine, as well as we can choose if we want to use the web content or not. And we can provide grounding data again. And here, right now, I'm saying, let's use that step-by-step guide document that I have in my SharePoint Online as additional grounding data for this specific task. And this is really powerful and allows you to have the power of Microsoft 365 Copilot also outside of the Microsoft 365 ecosystem. That said, back to you, Rob, and thank you.
Awesome stuff. Thank you, Paulo. Just a couple more examples of customer and partner solutions, this time built on the Copilot APIs. We'll start with SAP. SAP builds SAP Joule. You can see it here inside of M365 Copilot. Here, a project lead at Best Run is using Joule in Microsoft Teams to check the status of project data pulse and explore internal candidates for a project manager role. Joule instantly surfaces options. It's going to calculate the cost savings. And it's even going to confirm staffing for the solution, all without leaving Teams. And here in SAP, Copilot APIs power a direct integration with Copilot, allowing users to leverage those capabilities without leaving the flow of their work. Integrating SAP SuccessFactors, Joule and Copilot bring approvals, requests, and insights into a seamless workflow, making all these tasks faster, smarter, and more connected. One last example from our partners at Miro. Miro is using the Copilot APIs to enhance its core product experience. This is the Miro web app, and it's using the Chat API to gather feedback on product features and then transform them into sticky notes, complete with citations, directly on the Miro canvas. Miro also uses the Retrieval API to ground its flows feature. So you can pull in technical requirements and connect them to Miro's workflow capabilities. So you can see how partners are combining their own innovations with Copilot to deliver rich integrated experiences that users know and trust across Microsoft and partner platforms. And with all the partners that we just saw, as well as these on the screen, we're collaborating with leading companies across every industry so that Copilot integrates seamlessly into the tools and workflows that customers rely on every day. All right, we're just about at the end. We saw how to develop deep AI experiences from declarative agents to custom engine agents to custom apps that leverage the Copilot APIs, all using the M365 Agents SDK, Agents Toolkit, and the M365 Copilot platform. You've also heard a lot about Agent 365 throughout the week. Every one of the solutions that we built today can be deeply integrated with Agent 365, so they provide IT with the observability, with the telemetry, and the compliance that are required to operate within these organizational boundaries. There's a lot of sessions here this week about Agent 365 where you can dive into that in more detail, and we hope you'll try out Agent 365 in Frontier as it launches this week. And that's all we've got for today. Agents really are defining the way that people get work done, but you all are building them, and I am so excited to see what you're going to build. With that, I hope you have a great rest of Ignite. I appreciate you coming to this session. Happy building.